Hi everyone, for today's book review we're going to be looking at From Hero to Zero, written by Captain Rod Lavelle. This book looks at the event of one incredible ditching that you may or may not be aware of, and the pilot's fight for redemption and vindication. Let's go back to the 24th of April 1994. On the runway is a very old but very gallant DC-3. It had just celebrated its 50th birthday the previous week. This DC-3 VH-EDC had on board 25 passengers and crew. It was going to fly to Lord Howe Island on an air charter. It took off, and 30 seconds after takeoff there was a problem with the left engine. 46 seconds after that, the plane had successfully ditched in the waters of Port Botany, and all 25 passengers and crew were evacuating. Everyone got out, nobody died. The worst injury was a broken wrist. This ditching was a textbook perfect execution of that very difficult maneuver, and it was done in such a way that everyone survived. As we've seen with the miracle on the Hudson, one would have expected that the pilots to be congratulated and thanked for doing what a pilot's ultimate responsibility is to do, and that is to save the lives of those under their charge. In this instance, though, the investigation that came afterwards was conducted in such an unprofessional and confusing manner that ultimately they determined that it was pilot error. And unfortunately for the pilot, Captain Rod Lavelle, he then had to spend another 25 years of his life trying to prove his case, to show that no, it was not an issue of pilot error, but rather terrible maintenance that led to the failure of one engine and a partial failure of another that sent this plane down into the water. And this book follows the journey. The first third of the book covers the life of Captain Lavelle. He was trained with the Royal Australian Air Force and was qualified to fly P3 Orions. Throughout his aviation career, he flew Orions, he flew DC-9s, he flew Learjets, and at one point he was also certified to fly Boeing 747s. Ultimately, through persistence, relentless investigation, and most recently through a simulation using the world's only DC-3 simulator, our author was able to find vindication and prove that it wasn't pilot error that caused this crash, but rather the total failure of one engine and the partial failure of another, which were all caused by some terrible maintenance and bureaucratic oversight that did not ensure that this aircraft was maintained to the proper standards. And thus, it was just a matter of time for this poor aircraft to fail, and it was just by good fortune that we had a most qualified pilot to save the lives of those on board. The second half of this book covers the accident and the various investigations and his own attempts at proving his case, and he does so eloquently, he does so with ample evidence. All his sources are quoted, referenced. There's additional information on his website. You can order this book on his website. The link is below. He writes wonderfully, and there are various photographs and illustrations sprinkled throughout the book. You can see a few of these up here to give a better visual understanding of what's being discussed. To ditch an aircraft is one of the most complicated procedures that a pilot can do. And as we've seen with the miracle on the Hudson, the times where it is done successfully are incredibly rare. So we've got that. We have this, discussed in this book. Another one worth flagging is what's now called the Miracle on the Neva, Aeroflot Flight 366, where a Tupolev 124 landed on the Neva. And nobody even got off that plane. It was simply towed to the riverbank and then everyone got off on one of the top hatches. A Boeing Stratocruiser quite dramatically crashed into the ocean on its way across the Pacific, and that was captured on film, and again everyone managed to survive that one. So there are a handful of successful ditchings. Of course, the list on the other side, not so good. This is a fantastic book for those who want to understand what it was like growing in country Australia, entering the Royal Australian Air Force, and what it was like to fly in Australian skies throughout the 70s and the 80s. The procedures of running a DC-3 I found to be completely fascinating and illuminating, just how much has to go into ensuring a piston-propellered aircraft is functioning correctly. The account of the accident is lucid and a page-turner, and then the chapters afterwards that discuss the investigation, well, what passed as an investigation, and then the attempts for verification and vindication afterwards is equally gripping. If you do have some understanding of some aeronautical concepts, this won't be too hard. Even if you don't, there's enough explanation and there's enough reference there for you to cross-reference and follow through. It's not that difficult. Even if you come to this without any knowledge of flying, it is still a perfectly fine read. All in all, this is a 5 captain's hats. This is a story that deserves to be told, and we need more people like Captain Rod Lavelle in our skies to ensure that should something go wrong, those that are on board that aircraft will get home to their loved ones safe and sound. And as an aside, this marker on the cover indicates that Captain Rod is part of the Goldfish Club, which is an organization of people who have survived successful ditchings. So there's just a little fun fact there for you. So if you are interested in the stories of pilots, aviation, successful ditching, the operation of piston-engined aircraft, the mind-boggling stupidity of organizations that really should know better, then pick this book up. Like I said, there is a link to it in the description below. Check out the website, check out the book. This is an incredible story of an incredible pilot who did the impossible and managed to save everyone on board his aircraft. So do check it out. From Hero to Zero by Captain Rod Lavelle.